Hi friends, strangers, internet. My name is Emily Hanhan. I love colorful makeup and colorful language. And I'm here today with a tag from Angelica Nyqvist, the new makeup releases tag. I talk about it every time I do a tag. I love doing them and 'tis the season, it feels like. So Angelica made this tag. I think of it as kind of like a wrap up for the year. She makes Will I Buy It new makeup release videos every Sunday, and since I've been doing these new makeup bingos for a couple of months now, and I've followed the releases for this year with enthusiasm and boredom sometimes, I thought, why not do the tag? And the other thing that I did that I always do when I'm putting together answers to a tag is have multiple answers for each question. So that's kind of how I diversified my answers. The first question is, what mainstream release lived up to the hype most this year? For me, the answer is the CoverFX monochromatic blush duos. These are just my favorite. When they were sneak peeked, I felt like everyone got so excited. I didn't know if I'd ever seen that level of excitement for blush. And I was really nervous. I was like, oh, CoverFX, like I've used their products, but nothing is a standout for me. Like, I don't know, we'll see, whatever. Like, no, you know what? I was excited, but I was also a little bit pessimistic, which is as per usual for me. But I love these. I really like to say that I love a $38 blush is saying a lot for me. I love these. Yeah, Mojave Mauve is the first one I bought, and I think it's still my favorite, although I might end up using Soft Peach more because it's a touch more neutral. It's still peach, but it's a little bit more neutral than this pink one, although I adore being a blushing pink clown. As you can see, I'm fine with being a clown wearing this makeup. So if you've never seen me before, this is not that unusual for me. Anyway, I love these. So for me, for mainstream, these lived up to the hype. Now I'm also answering these questions thinking about other people, because I am not capable of trying all the new releases, but I do watch a hell of a lot of review and first impression kind of videos. I think some of the things that I've seen that kind of lived up to the hype with the releases were the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. Most people that I've seen talk about it really love it. Teresa might be watching and might question that answer, but you know, I know a lot of people do like it. I think the ABH Luminous Foundation got a lot of rave reviews after a decent amount of hype. And the other thing that I think lived up to the hype but isn't maybe my go-to are the ColourPop Rainbow 9 pans. Now I think they veered into like repetitive, oversaturated world after like the orange palette, but people tend to love these, and I think they're an okay formula. Like, I don't reach for them regularly myself. I think in the mainstream market, this was a really good release, and for $12 each, I'll give it to ColourPop. Like, probably in their lineup, these are some of my faves. Question number 2 is, what indie release most lived up to the hype this year? Gotta give it to Cleos. I feel like when these 3 palettes showed up on the internet, I felt like, at least in the indie makeup world, like it broke the internet. And after getting them, I do get it. Like, the packaging paired with the quality, paired with the color stories, although they weren't perfect color stories, I get it. And then they expanded upon the collection, and I bought all 5 of these. If I showed you my palette collection right now, you would see I don't buy palettes in this way, generally speaking, but I feel like the size of the palettes, the packaging, the colors, and then the fact that they went in with these the newer releases, they added a different shimmer formula that had more texture and dimension. I think across the board they're gonna change the makeup game. I was gonna say the indie makeup game, but I feel like this is inspired. if this sets the tone for future releases from indie and mainstream brands, I'm all in. The other thing that I feel like lived up to the hype, even though I didn't try them, are the Lisa Eldridge lipsticks. I'm making an assumption that she's indie. I could be wrong. If she's has a mainstream manufacturer or whatever, I'm gonna, same difference. I would put her in that first question. All the reviews I've seen, the quality is there, customer service seems to be there, colors are interesting and unique without being intimidating for a lot of people. Yeah, they seem like gorgeous lipsticks that, if you have the money to spend, seem like they might be kind of worth it. Question number 3 is, which releases did not live up to the hype? My first answer is going to be a common one in this tag, and that's the Jaclyn Hill lipsticks. I mean, did I expect a lot out of that release? Personally, no. Did I expect it to go as terribly and dangerously as it did? No. Yeah, that was not living up to the hype. That was crashing and burning, and somehow the brand is back. The other two that are on this list for this question are Sister Jeffree Hill, the Jeffree Star and Morphe collaboration palette, and the James Charles and Morphe mini palette. No. The Jeffree palette was 2 pops of green and a lot of neutrals, and then Jeffree Star liquid lipsticks and Morphe lip glosses. And the eyeshadows were not Jeffree Star quality, but they had his name on it because they were Morphe. And then the James Charles palette was just the exact same thing over and over again. Like, the exact same thing but smaller. Like, I know we've beaten this dead horse, but he could have done this kind of color story idea to come out with like travel friendly options, and instead just fucking shrunk the palette. No. Question number 4 is, what was the biggest curveball? So I took this in a couple of different directions. The first thing that I think was the biggest curveball is the Clionadh stained glass collection. That collection changed our interest in multi-chromes, or changed it, I don't know. I feel like, I'm sure pressed multi-chromes existed before Clionadh, but I feel like that collection spurred so many other indie brands to come up with their own pressed multi-chromes. And the pastel multi-chromes and the glittery ones, not saying that other formulas didn't exist before Clionadh, but now that I've gotten them and I see what the different textures are, I kind of see where other indie brands may have gotten inspiration from Clionadh. And I have a feeling that those shadow styles will kind of creep into mainstream, I think. Another curveball, in a kind of positive way, was the Urban Decay Honey palette. I'm saying it's a curveball because we saw the marketing images and we were like, what? Urban Decay is at it again, being boring as fuck. And then when it actually was released, I feel like more people liked it, more people talked positively, and I feel like it probably sold better than I would have assumed it sold. I didn't buy it. It's still not like my perfect purchase, but of all the naked palettes that exist, that is the one that I would buy. I don't own any of them actually. And then I'm giving one last curveball award to the ABH and Norvina like launch. I think it's a curveball because I think it opened up people's eyes to the fact that ABH is just a business. I don't know what their sales are like now versus what they were at the beginning of the year versus where they were last year. I don't know. But I think a lot of the pushback, at least within the community, of how it seemed like, I talked about this. I have a whole video about how all makeup brands want your money. Basically, just how I think the rollout of the Norvina brand and how clunkily and honestly badly done it was really just showed a lot of the like stans of ABH and Norvina that it's just a business. I'm not going to remark on quality because I don't know that about the Norvina collection. I have no experience with it personally besides swatching it in store. I don't know about that, but I just think maybe it was an eye-opener for some people that were just like sheeps to the brand. maybe. Question number 5 is, what was the biggest letdown or snooze fest of the year? Okay, so Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star. If you've been around on my channel, you probably know how I feel about those two people. I wasn't really impressed with anything they came out with in their collection. And I feel like the conspiracy concept was fucking badass. And when I first heard about it, like last year, I was like, oh, there's so much they could do with that. And I felt like they could do interesting formulas or grungy, funky, weird colors. And then they did what a lot of us in the beauty community kind of expected them to do. And that was, at least from what we saw, that Shane picked out things that were important to him and made colors relevant to that, and or Jeffree kind of pushed him to incorporate colors that he had not used yet. The final actual makeup products themselves, to me, were a total snooze. And I'm gonna have to say that a whole hell of a lot of what ColourPop released was a snooze fest to me. And part of that is because they just released so fucking much. And so much of it was repetitive. And I know you can't like reinvent the wheel in every single release, but Jesus Christ, if you're gonna bring something out, like don't bring out the same palette a week later. Just everything, so much of what they released just was so incredibly boring to me. The colorful palettes were the only ones that kind of spiked my interest as a color lover. But I feel like even thinking back to last fall, the Good Sport palette, that was such a pretty color story that was colorful and neutral. I feel like I didn't see anything in that same realm this whole year. So, sorry ColourPop, but you're one of those people that I'm gonna like flirt with you and I'm gonna like see what you're doing, but I'm not gonna actively like feed into your bullshit. And I just wanted to add that a big letdown almost every year are the holiday releases from Tarte and Too Faced. And that perfectly rolls into the next question, which is, what was the best holiday release of this year? And I'm giving that to Melt, the Amor Eterno collection. I don't own it. I've looked at it a lot online. I've seen some of it in person. I just think they had a concept, they had a backstory, they have a collection that feels complete but not overly done. They didn't just make products to make them. And I think they put out some kind of interesting color stories. Like, if you're into smoky eyes, I think the Muerte palette is such a killer palette for the holidays because you have all these smoky colors and you can make it more neutral or make it more like punchy. And then, I mean, I was even inspired today. This look is inspired by the colors in the Vita palette. It's not using it, but it is inspired by it. It's kind of an obvious answer, but I gotta give it to them. Gotta give it to Melt. The last question is, what are your predictions for the new year? Now, I was maybe inspired by Angelica to make a trends video. I think I am gonna make a beauty trends for 2020 kind of predictions video, because it's fun to talk about makeup and think about what was released and what might be coming and what seems to be trending now versus, what was trending. I don't know if I'm quite the fortune teller the way Angelica is, because she really killed it with some of her 2018 to 2019 predictions. I'll give a little hint out, and I've talked about in other videos, and I've already seen it kind of start. Texture. Texture is, I think, the biggest trend of 2020. And when I say texture, I mean not only shadows like this pink and these two turquoise that kind of look like interesting in the pan and on the eye, but texture meaning having some shadows in a palette that are that formula and having some that are more of a traditional metallic foiled and having matte and having, satin and having more than like 2 finishes in a palette. And I know Angelica's talked about this before too, so might be repeating other people, but I just think that assortment, that variety, I think that's going to be the biggest trend. I'm hopeful to see brands go away from pressed glitters and go into glittery shadows, but that are not pressed glitters. So that's a trend that I'm seeing for 2020. And I'm going to leave it at that and say that you should keep an eye out for a future video talking about trends for 2020 makeup. If you like this tag and you're a creator and you want to do it, I'm tagging you. If you haven't seen the original tag from her, I'll link it in the description box. You should definitely be following her if you are a colorful makeup lover. And if this is your first time watching one of my videos and you enjoyed it and you'd like to follow along with my colorful shenanigans, I would love for you to subscribe. Thank you for spending a bit of your day with me. I hope to see you again real soon. Bye, friends.